This is a Lego sea turtle, and this is a turtle machine made entirely from Lego. It swims back and forth, paddles its flippers, and bobs its head in one continuous motion. The turtle is made out of normal Lego bricks, while the machine is built out of Technic gears, powered by a Lego motor. I went through more iterations designing this than anything I've built before. The process was painful, but worth it. I've wanted a pet sea turtle ever since I saw one while snorkeling a few years ago. But it was when I learned that owning a sea turtle is extremely illegal that I instead decided I needed to spend the next 10 months building a sea turtle machine out of Lego. I want to have a baby sea turtle by my side 24/7. The first problem I encountered when designing my turtle is that most Lego pieces are square, and turtles are not square. I would love to just build something like this and call it a day, but thankfully, Lego does have some curved slope pieces to help smooth out these edges. Sculpting organic shapes like animals out of Lego still takes a lot of effort. Too much detail and it looks creepy. Too little and it looks like you barely tried. I often find that faces are one of the easiest things to mess up when building. It can go from 0 to ugly in just a few pieces. Nope. No. What? Wrong turtle. Too evil. Maybe? Yeah, I think I like this one. Let's work on improving it a bit. Adding some wedges right here helps define the neck and mouth, but I think these eyes are starting to creep me out. Let's pick a new one from the over 50 eye pieces that Lego makes. Nope. No. Nah. Eyes aren't typically represented by a couple of squares, but I like the sparkle that these add. I spent several more hours than I want to admit figuring out how to give the turtle a pink mouth. Although it took creating a turtle head graveyard to do it, I think this finally registers on the cute scale. Let's now give our new aquatic friend someplace to live other than this cardboard box. I know that at this scale, matching turtle shell patterns would be impossible, so I'm going to focus on perfecting the shell's shape instead. That means no studs or sharp edges. My shell design hinges upon clipping different sections of sideways bricks to this funky bar piece. Please excuse the gray bits. Eventually, the whole shell will be brown. I just like to use whatever colors are near me for quick prototyping. I can angle these to fit around the head nicely, but the big gaps in between sections are unacceptable. To fill them, I'm going to use these one-wide slope pieces, commonly referred to as cheese slopes. They call this piece a cheese slope because the yellow ones kind of look like a cheese wedge. Comment below if you like cheese. The back of the shell is a little more complicated. These sections use brackets to build in 4 different directions, though the middle section is what ties this whole thing together. The shell is now completely smooth and almost 100% gapless. But let's not forget about the turtle's limbs. He couldn't swim very well with just a head. I decided to make the fins out of this Lego surfboard piece. Attaching them was complicated, but eventually I got them to swing right up into the ridge of the shell. I think the turtle design is done, though the final step of coloring the shell all brown would be much harder than I expected. So I was just now going section by section, making the entire shell brown, when I came to realize that not only do I not have any of this bracket in brown, but that the bracket doesn't even exist in brown in the first place. The simple explanation for this is that although Lego makes these 4 brackets in a variety of colors, only these 3 come in brown, while my design relies on the 4th that doesn't. I hit the drawing board again, trying to make the shell work without that silly bracket. But eventually, I accepted that that was going to be impossible without compromising in some way. Turtle progress stalled for several weeks while I worked on other projects, but those made me want to compromise on the shell design even less. I was honestly considering scrapping the turtle altogether when Lego themselves did something unexpected. This is the new Chinese New Year set, which, for the first time ever, includes the elusive 1 wide 1x2 down bracket in reddish brown. Let's go! As an adult with a day job, I feel way too excited about this new Lego bracket coming out, but it means I don't have to scrap my turtle after all. It took until mid-February for all the parts to arrive, but with the turtle complete and looking really slick, I was finally able to start working on the machine itself. My plan is to mount the turtle on a platform that has some gears to bob its head and paddle its flippers, while another set of gears will be providing power and pushing the platform back and forth. Getting the platform moving was pretty simple. It's all powered by a hand crank on the back, which I already feel tired of. Let's persuade this motor to take over my cranking duties while I'm prototyping. The turtle itself is mounted on its belly with an additional support to keep its head upright. The flippers are powered by some basic gears on the platform, though powering those gears while they are moving is anything but simple. My first idea for this involved using gears on hinges to transfer power from the motor to the platform, but that did not go well. So like any good designer, I attempted to steal a solution from someone else who had already solved the problem. This 3D printed turtle machine that helped inspire my project utilizes a special worm gear to power its moving parts, but sadly, this gear doesn't exist in LEGO, so I'm going to have to make it all myself, after all. I tried utilizing the back and forth motion of the platform with a stationary gear, but that doesn't work either. And although CV joints can power the platform correctly, they make the machine overly complicated and way too long. I think I just found the answer while messing around with these gears. I noticed that if I am careful, I'm able to move this gear back and forth a little while it is still turning. And if I add more gears, the distance I can move increases. By attaching 4 of them together, creating what is essentially one very wide gear, the platform is now able to receive constant rotational power from the motor, all while moving back and forth. I love how simple and consistent this is, but I am noticing a bit of jiggle on the turtle's head. It took me a bit to figure it out, but sadly, I think our new wide gear is to blame. Although the wide gear is almost a perfect shaft, because the teeth are rounded, there are actually little valleys in between each of the gears. This means that with every back and forth, there are 3 dips in speed that manifest in the turtle as a nasty jiggle. After some off-camera tinkering the next day, I came up with a near perfect alternative to these jiggly gears. Before I prototype it though, we need to get this little guy actually swimming. Getting both of the fins synced up with this axle was pretty easy, though finding something that was just the right length to support the fins was difficult. If the fins go too high, they bump the turtle shell. Too low, and the support falls out. Axles come in finite lengths, but this cone piece allows me to extend an axle to the exact length I need for a full smooth stroke. The flippers themselves don't actually attach to the supports, but are really just gently set on top of them, allowing the flippers to pivot freely as it swims. In contrast to the flippers, getting the head to bob right was super finicky. I inserted these gears in between the fins to give me another crankshaft to use for lifting the shell. This small crankshaft piece gives me just a single stud of vertical displacement, but even that makes the turtle bob its head with way too much enthusiasm. This is because any small movement on the shell is magnified by the head. I need something that is way more subtle. I came up with the idea of attaching the support onto this Technic beam instead of the crank itself. This beam forms a gradient of vertical displacements that we can use to our advantage. We know that the top hole moves too much, but as you move towards the bottom of the beam, each hole moves vertically less and less, with the bottom hole not moving at all. So by selecting the hole second from the bottom, I was able to use just a quarter of the crankshaft's original movement, giving the turtle this perfect head bob. And with the turtle now swimming, it is finally time to punish these gears for their jiggly crimes. In place of these jiggly gears, I'm going to use these axles instead. Axles are perfectly smooth lengthwise, so pieces with holes are able to slide along them with ease. This means that if we position a couple of axles like so, rotational power can be transferred to the flippers, all while the platform moves smoothly back and forth. This is a perfect example of how complicated things can get, even when the best solution was actually super simple. But at this point, I'm just glad the turtle is finally swimming smoothly. To finish off this creation, I want to create an underwater ocean scene to make the turtle feel right at home. Surely adding some sand and coral can't be that hard, right? Well, it wouldn't be if it wasn't for these 6 things. For everything sticking out of the base, I need to have a hole in the ocean floor. The hole needed for the flipper supports is especially massive, making the whole base look bad. With no apparent solution for the size of these holes, I spent several days making the base all black, so I could avoid this problem entirely. If everything was black, the pieces would blend together, looking pretty clean, and I wouldn't need a case at all. You have no idea how tempted I was to call it here, and finally be done with this project. But not all the pieces I need come in black, and after months spent bringing this turtle to life, I couldn't bring myself to compromise in this way. I want my turtle to have an ocean floor with seaweed, coral, and most importantly, no holes. And I'm gonna keep building until I can make that a reality. So I scrapped my black base, got out my tan bricks again, and got to work on the final problem this creation had in store for me. To make the holes as small as possible, I need to figure out how to keep the up and down motion of the supports while limiting their side-to-side movement. Right now, the flipper support rotates in a circular motion because this gear and the platform move in different directions at the same time. But if I change the orientation of this gear to align with the platform, the movement of the support is limited to just one direction. Although this new hole is thinner, the platform and gear are now synced up, compounding how much the support moves with each back and forth, making the hole really long. However, by adding another gear next to the motor, I was able to reverse the rotation of the support so that both movements counteract each other. This keeps the support super still while it moves up and down, making the base look way better. The remaining two holes interfere with each other, so I need to tackle their solutions at the same time. I know that I want to disguise the main support by making the hole super shallow using these panel pieces, but finding a way to make the head gently bob without any back and forth movement seemed impossible. Until I realized I had been looking at this mechanism backwards the entire time. I noticed that the crankshaft for the head bob really just follows the movement of the platform. When one is forward, so is the other. So by attaching this lift arm to the case instead, I was able to utilize the platform's back and forth movement to bob the head, removing the crankshaft entirely. In addition to making the holes smaller by keeping the support super still, this change really simplifies how I power the flippers, using an axle instead of multiple gears to keep them synced. And for my final hole shrinking magic trick, I replaced these beefy axles with thin antenna pieces. The antennas are a bit bendy, but that actually helps account for the side-to-side motion of the flippers. And because they are so thin, I was able to shrink the holes to the width of just a single plate. The holes aren't 100% gone, but I think this improvement was well worth my effort. With the ocean floor finally looking pristine, I suddenly noticed that this chunky motor is really messing with my vibe. So I decided to hide it in this suspiciously motor-sized hole that was left inside the case, helping the back of the machine look much cleaner. My favorite part of this setup is that the motor can be disengaged by flip-flopping this gear back and forth, allowing you to hand crank the machine while the motor is still attached. After yet another order of parts arrived, I was able to build the final version of the machine, which is way sleeker and sturdier than the prototype. The ocean floor details are hard to mess up, as coral can be made out of pretty much anything colorful you have lying around. And then, with a few final tweaks to the turtle itself, my custom LEGO Sea Turtle machine was finally complete. With a top speed of 76 paddles per minute and an unceasing smile, it is so satisfying to see some of my best artistic and mechanical design combined together into one creation. Given enough time and determination, you can truly create anything you want out of LEGO. And although this isn't the first LEGO Sea Turtle to have ever been built, with my last minute changes, I think it might be the cutest. I honestly didn't intend to do any more design work on the turtle this late into the project, but when I realized I had enough pieces in lime green to make a second one, I couldn't stop myself. I had ruled out using this cartoony eyepiece months ago, thinking it was too big for the head, but when I actually tried it, it didn't look awkward at all. In fact, he now looks so cute, he's beginning to feel familiar. Yeah, I think I've been subconsciously turning my turtle into Squirt from Finding Nemo this whole time. And although it is sad to see the twinkly eyes go, I'm happy to say that head version number 30 is here to stay. But now that I had two turtles, of course I needed another machine so they can be swimming buddies together. And to help them really ride the waves, I went the extra mile and built this to push them back and forth on my table, which I definitely designed perfectly on my first try. Seeing them pass each other in the water like this is so satisfying, helping me finally feel like a real sea turtle owner, all from the comfort of my own home. When I first started working on the turtle head almost a year ago, I had no idea this project would be so complicated, but I'm glad I stuck with it, because this turtle machine turned into something I am really proud of. After all that, however, there is still one unanswered question. Can the turtle actually swim? No, sadly not. Thanks for watching.